This is Jerry Gaffney with a story called Aberystwyth. It contains swearing, drug use and nudity. If you'd rather read this story, you can do so at jerrygaffney.com. Irish Danny came back from Aberystwyth with a sports bag full of magic mushrooms. I arrived home from work on Friday to find him sitting in the kitchen, chatting with Ellen and Colin the Grey. As usual, the rest of the house was freezing, but the oven was on full, with the door open, and the kitchen was nice and toasty. Irish Danny was looking pretty dishevelled. He hadn't shaved for quite a while, but that wasn't unusual. He looked like he hadn't combed or washed his long brown hair. I was glad he didn't try to hug me or get in close proximity. Instead, he made a little nod with his beer bottle towards me and said, "How are you?" "Hello yourself, welcome back. How were the country cousins? How was the festival?" "The festival," he sipped, "was great. However, I was a fairly brief attendant at the festival. I met some people." He paused. "Have you ever had magic mushrooms?" "Magic mushrooms?" "Magic mushrooms. Is there an echo here? Is there an echo here?" "No, there's no echo. Nor have I ever had magic mushrooms, although I have heard good things about them. Would those good things be true?" "In my recent and extended experience, yes, they would be true. There is a very nice high, very trippy and mellow." He paused. "Legally, however, they are in the same class as everything else our reptilian overlords want to keep us from. So naturally, I cannot suggest you partake in any of the mushrooms I happen to have here in my travelling bag." He kicked the sports bag on the ground before him. It budged slightly. "That would be your clothing, toiletries, lotions and the like, plus a small amount of the aforesaid." "Incorrect," said Irish Danny. "In the interest of maximising the potential profitability of my visit to our Welsh friends, I abandoned all unnecessary accoutrements. This bag contains only mushrooms." "There wasn't much room for anything else," I hazarded. He smiled. "A lame jape, but true." "You two are very annoying," said Ellen, "with your in-jokes and your paddy banter. It's very difficult to understand you both." "That's harsh," said Irish Danny. "Patrick here and I were simply speaking the language your forefathers foisted upon ours. Anyway, will you mind my stuff while I have a shower?" "That's a great idea," said Ellen. "I don't think you smelled good even when you left." Irish Danny sauntered off, yawning and scratching his head, and shortly we heard running water and singing. Colin the Grey hefted the bag up onto the kitchen table. 15 kilos or so, I'd guess. He unzipped the bag. As Irish Danny had said, it was full of mushrooms, packed and compressed into several plastic shopping bags. Tesco, Morrison's, Lidl. The whole encased in turn in a large transparent plastic wrapping. Colin the Grey peeled back a small edge of the outer wrap. A powerful mushroomy smell emerged. "I'm not normally a big fan of mushrooms," said Colin, "but this smells rather promising, wouldn't you say?" He looked at us quizzically. "What on earth is he going to do with so many mushrooms?" asked Ellen. "Given his reference to maximising profit, I imagine he plans to sell them," said Colin. Colin the Grey was known to indulge in various substances, although never to the point of appearing intoxicated or out of control. Ellen, on the other hand, was an enthusiastic proponent of any sort of drugs, though only from Friday evening until Sunday night, as she had a real job as an SAP analyst, whatever that was. Work was important to Ellen. She was saving up, she said, to buy a flat in Kensington or Notting Hill. This was an aspiration so alien to the rest of us as to make Work Ellen a creature we could never hope to understand. Party Ellen was a different story. She led us into temptation and we trooped along in her wake. "Clearly," she said now, "we can't allow Irish Danny to begin selling his product until we've done some quality control. Due diligence. I'll talk to him." She marched off purposefully. A moment later we heard a shriek from Irish Danny as Ellen accosted him in the bathroom. "I'm naked," he shouted. "Yes, I can see that." The door closed and we heard nothing else. Colin the Grey is not much of a talker, so we sat in peaceable silence awaiting Ellen's return. Colin used to have a beard, apparently, that made him look like a wizard, so he ended up with the nickname Colin the Grey that stuck even when the beard did not. I was always a bit envious of good nicknames. Colin the Grey had an air of mystery. Even Irish Danny was pretty good. I don't know why everyone called him Irish Danny, since there were no other Dannys in our social circle. I was stuck with just Paddy. Occasionally Ellen would call me Patrick, particularly if she wanted to upbraid me for neglecting to attend to some allocated task. And of course, Ellen needed no nickname. She was beyond nicknames. After a few minutes, Danny and Ellen returned. He'd changed into fresh clothes and was bordering on respectable. I explained to Irish Danny, said Ellen, that we need to do some QA before we can allow him to sell his product. Danny nodded. Ellen delved into his bag and pulled out a handful of the small mushrooms. She made 4 piles, approximately equal. There were probably 7 or 8 mushrooms in each. Irish Danny gets a little extra because he's habituated. Okay, that's it. Wait, I said. You mean we should take these now? This was all happening very quickly, I felt. What is it, Patrick? Do you have a pressing engagement this fine Friday evening? A girl, perhaps, whom we haven't vetted? No, I stammered. I just thought... Less thinking, more doing, she said. Colin, any concerns about our plan? Colin the Grey grinned. No, let's go. Ellen looked back at me. I shrugged. Okay, I just thought, maybe we could start with a microdose. Ellen looked aghast. Microdose? Next you'll be recommending homeopathy or zero alcohol wine. No, let's leave microdosing to the effete Americans. Okay, just a thought. I'm in. Good, said Ellen. Colin, put on some toast if you would. I think these fungi will be a bit more palatable with toast and marmalade. Once we've partaken, let's go for a wander into the smoke. Shortly thereafter, we found ourselves sitting upstairs at the back on the number 94 bus. For a time we were quiet, observing the passing streetscape. Passengers came and went as our bus made its way through the early evening traffic. Daylight was fading and the city lights took on an ephemeral appearance, seeming to change in time with the noise of the diesel engine. Soon the diesels would be gone forever, I thought. I felt a little nostalgic. Colin the Grey brought my thoughts back to the moment when he said in a slightly worried voice, I hope these mushrooms work. It doesn't feel like anything is happening. Irish Danny looked at him. Sure, don't worry, he said. There's another few thousand at home. Colin sniggered. Then Ellen began to laugh. It was contagious, and soon all 4 of us were laughing aloud. Another few thousand, said Ellen. Oh, yes, indeed. She snorted in a very un-Ellen-like fashion, and this set the rest of us into paroxysms. I noted that other passengers were turning to look at what was going on. Shh, I said. People are starting to look at us askance. Askance, said Ellen. Yes, indeed, laughing on the bus is frowned upon. But look, we have arrived. We left the bus and became submerged in the evening crowds, our merry group of 4 pinging around the West End. Later that evening, we went home by tube. We let ourselves into the house and sat in the warm kitchen. We'd seen a rerun of Toy Story and had a pizza. Now we were all tired. Colin the Grey seemed glum. What's wrong, oh wise one? Asked Ellen. Buzz Lightyear lost his arm. Colin, look at me. Buzz Lightyear is a character in a film. The film is over now. Do you understand? Oh, said Colin. I thought we were still in it. Irish Danny laughed. I think that confirms that we have a quality product, he said. Indeed, said Ellen, but your next step is to dry and package it. That could be something of an undertaking, especially given the lack of heating opportunities in this kip. I had an idea, said Danny. Ideas are good, if they're good, said Ellen. Spit it out. Wrap the mushrooms in a bedsheet, put them in a dryer at the laundrette on low heat for, say, 2 hours. Well, that certainly is an idea, said Ellen. You'd have to make sure it was well tied up. Yeah, of course, but I'm too tired now. I'll do it in the morning. By the time I got up the next day, still feeling slightly spaced out from our mushroom adventure, Irish Danny was arriving back at the house. I turfed it into the machine nearest the door, fed it a few £2 coins. Need to go back at 11 just before it stops. He looked very self-satisfied. I had a slight sense of unease. The plan was typical of Danny's many plans, clever and subversive and probably doomed to failure because of some unforeseen complication. Just before 11 o'clock in the morning, the 4 of us strolled around to the laundrette. There was a considerable commotion outside. I'd forgotten that the laundrette was next door to the police station. I'm sure if I'd been in Danny's place, I would have noticed the police station and modified my plans accordingly. But once Irish Danny had set a plan in motion, he liked to see it through. The laddie's not for turning. Ellen was looking equal parts horrified and amused, seeming to swing between the 2 expressions without settling for long on either. Colin the Grey just looked horrified. The police station had been evacuated. Coppers, detectives and admin staff were standing across the road smoking and chatting. 2 people in hazmat suits were emerging from the laundrette. They carried Barry's bedsheet between them. It was torn, and dusty, desiccated mushrooms fell from it as they took it to their van. As we strolled past the laundrette among the evacuees, trying to look no more than curious, we noticed the strong smell of mushrooms. Several of the people standing around were grinning. I wondered if they'd been affected by the fumes. Can you smoke mushrooms? I wondered. On the next street corner, we stopped into the Chiff and Fipple. It was a little early in the day for drinking, but we felt that the drama justified a steadying ale. I bought the drinks and brought them to our table. Cheers, Irish Danny, and thanks for the trip, I said. Second that, said Colin the Grey. Cheers, said Ellen. So, what's the plan? Irish Danny took a contemplative sip. Back to Aberystwyth, he said. Post haste. If you enjoyed this story, please consider leaving a positive review at iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you accessed it.